Appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'll continue on. I have an amendment. In fact, I have three, but I'll begin with the one that deals with BDS because my colleague has just been talking about it. My amendment is very straightforward. It increases diplomatic funding in order to support Department of State staff and carrying out the requirements to ensure funds in this bill aren't provided to entities participating in BDS acts. Mr. Chairman, as with past years, the Appropriations Committee has included report language that addresses the aggressive and harmful actions of boycott, divestment, and sanctions actions against Israel and its people. This language is important for a number of reasons, including recognizing the harmful effects this has on an ally and strong democracy in the Middle East, but also because it recognizes that the federal government has a role to play in preventing taxpayer money from going towards these actions seeking to delegitimize Israel. It's no secret the horrific actions the Jewish people face in the 20th century and the ongoing threats that the people of Israel face in today's world. The BDS effort is an extension of these attacks on the Israeli people. This should be a bipartisan approach to help stop the relentless efforts by Israel's enemies to delegitimize the people of Israel and to stand up for a country that is a beacon of democracy in a region with so many threats. I'm happy to say that I joined a number of colleagues several months ago in writing the Appropriations Committee that funding restrictions should be put in place that prevents U.S. funds from going to entities participating in this BDS action. This amendment is an important extension of those efforts and represents a real opportunity to work in a bipartisan fashion to enforce this long-standing precedent and to ensure taxpayer dollars aren't going to efforts to harm Israel. I ask that the Rules Committee provide full consideration of this amendment as it seeks to strengthen efforts taken by the Appropriations Committee and this body in previous years, and because it reflects bipartisan interests in Congress. I also have another amendment, Mr. Chairman. It has to do with this bill that has us spending $100 million on an inefficient Navigator grants to try to bail out the Affordable Care Act. The Navigator program has proven itself to be incredibly ineffective. For plan year 2017, Navigators received a total of $62.5 million in grants and enrolled less than 82,000 individuals, fewer than 1% of total enrollees. That year, 17 different Navigators enrolled less than 100 people. That cost taxpayers $5,000 per enrollee they recruited. That's simply not a good use of taxpayers' money. I'm proposing that we keep funding for the Navigator grant stable at the $10 million we spent last year and is consistent with what we spent to promote Medicare Advantage and Medicare Part D. I'm also proposing we spend those additional $90 million to address a much more critical problem, and that is the opioid epidemic. We did some great work in the past appropriations bills in passing the Support Act last Congress, but I'm sure I'm not alone in still hearing from folks in my state about the need to do even more. A 2017 national survey on drug use and health found that 11.4 million Americans had misused prescription opioids. 2 million people misused prescription opioids for the first time that year. 2.1 million people already have an opioid use disorder. 886,000 Americans used heroin. About 10% of those used it for the first time. According to the CDC, the opioid crisis claims 130 Americans' lives every day. 130 American lives every day. And it's not slowing down. With a crisis like this continuing to devastate communities across the country, we simply can't waste this kind of money on inefficient efforts to prop up the Affordable Care Act. In a second amendment that I have at the desk, in a third amendment that I have at the desk, I'm proposing transferring $1.5 million in funds from these ACA Navigators grants and put those funds toward Jobs for Veterans state grants. Our veterans are simply put our heroes. Without their bravery, their sacrifice, and their service, our country would look like a much different place. This is especially evident just after the 75th anniversary of D-Day, in which so many young Americans died to free Western civilization from the grips of dictatorship. And D-Day is only one example. From Vietnam to the Persian Gulf War and the War on Terror, we have veterans that need our support when they return home. One of our veterans' unique needs is finding employment. After completing military service, veterans are thrust into the job market and have to transfer military skills to reintegrate themselves into a job in the domestic marketplace. Although most businesses report that veteran employees perform at a higher level than regular civilian employees, unfortunately, veterans are at a 15.6% greater chance of being unemployed or underemployed than a civilian. We need to do better, and we can do better, Mr. Chairman. That's why I'm proposing this amendment to transfer $1.5 million in funds from the ACA Navigator grants toward the Jobs for Veterans state grants. This program provides funding to 54 state workforce agencies to help give veterans individualized career and training-related services. I encourage everyone on this committee to join with me in supporting our veterans here on the homeland and help to give veterans an equal shot at gaining meaningful employment after they have put their lives on the line to keep our country and our families safe. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the opportunity to present this.
Well, thank you very much, and I apologize for getting here